Hey kids, it's Mr. Fly here, hope you're well. Now I'm a fortunate chap because for the last 10 days I've been riding this, the brand new for 2021 Triumph Trident. If you stick around and stay tuned to this video, I'll give you all the lessons I've learned.
Okay, so during the time that I've had the bike, I've ridden it on all sorts of roads in all sorts of conditions. I've ridden it in the wet, I've ridden it on twisty roads, I've ridden it on motorways, I've ridden it at night, all sorts of stuff to learn how this bike behaves in those conditions. So stick around and stay tuned for those various segments. Once we've gone through those, I'm also going to go through all the pros and cons of the bike. So not only the things that I love about the bike, but also that things about the bike that I found are just little niggles that you maybe wouldn't pick up if you just had a 1 hour test ride on the motorcycle. So if you're interested in the 2021 Triumph Trident, stick around and stay tuned. This video is for you. So how's the Trident then in the urban environment if you're going to be riding through towns and cities? How are you going to get on? Well, that really is where this bike scores. I mean, this isn't a particularly busy urban environment. I'm just rolling on up here to Amersham, just a little market town here in Buckinghamshire, but it's about as urban as it gets around here. But the beauty of this bike is you're sitting nice and upright. Look, I can see way over the traffic. I mean, my helmet camera is mounted low down on my helmet, so maybe you can't see over, but I can see beyond the red car in front to the white van that's turning off. So, you know, you can see well on here. Great mirrors on the bike as well. I can see well behind me. I'm not looking at my elbow or anything, so good situational awareness. The bright LED lights on here as well make you seen well, so other cars can see you. And then the big plus for this bike, in terms of riding it in traffic, is that it's very agile, it's very light, so it's easy to filter through. So if you're getting into, you know, lines of traffic and stuff, you can filter through no problems at all. Heck, this must be the urban environment. Look, there's an underground station. It must be London. This particular underground station, just there, look on my right, is Amersham Underground Station. It's on the end, well, not quite the end, of the Metropolitan line. And it's one of the furthest tube stations outside of London, so don't be fooled. But you get the general idea. In the urban environment, the Triumph Trident is absolutely great. To my mind, it's where the bike belongs, really. So how does the Trident fare in the wet? Well, it's not actually raining at the moment, but it's been raining overnight, and as you can see, it's a pretty wet, damp, horrible day on the roads here. The bike itself is fitted OEM with Michelin Road 5 tyres, which are excellent tyres for the wet. They're kind of known for it. They've got very interesting tread pattern. I'll put a picture up if I remember of the tread on here, so you can see they've got really deep, I think they're called sipes, aren't they, where they cut the tread out the side that pushes water away. So if there is a lot of standing water around, then you should get reasonable levels of grip. So the tyres are great in the wet, and I have to say, even though these are new tyres on here, they are very confidence inspiring even on this wet, slippery road. So full marks to the tyres. And then from electronic assistance, it does of course have ABS and traction control. I haven't found a way to switch those off, but why would you ever want to switch them off anyway? They're relatively basic on this bike, that they're not the IMU controlled ABS and traction control, so it's not lean angle sensitive. But hey ho, you know, that's just being a bit picky, isn't it? At least it's got ABS and traction control more than my personal bikes have got. So yeah, as ever, physics does play a role when it's wet. You have to take it easy a little bit, not go too mad on the cordons and what have you, but generally speaking, in the wet, the bike's absolutely fine.
Okay, night time on the Trident then, and okay, smarty pants, I know it's not night time at the moment, but just before I show you what it's like riding the bike at night time, I thought I'd show you what the lights actually look like during the day. So when you turn the bike on, the standard lighting is this. There we go. So that's the standard dipped beam, just the top part of the light on, and nice LED lights, they look pretty smart. The switch gear themselves is here, so there's only this one button for the lights on here. It's a bit annoying in that when you push it in, it goes to full beam. So I'll show you full beam. There you go, full beam, both bits on, can you see that? So that's dip, and that's full beam. So you basically, I don't know if I can show you me pressing it and what happens to the light. So I press it, it goes to dip, I press it again, it goes to full beam. And that's it. So basically what that means is there's no facility on this button for you to actually flash the headlight, because you'll just turn the head full beam, if you see what I mean. So that's a bit of a pain if you like to flash your headlights occasionally. But anyway, that's enough about that. Let's use the magic of YouTube and let's see what it's like actually at night. Okay, so with the magic of YouTube, night time on the Trident then. And well,
As ever, the GoPro won't pick up what it's really like, so I apologise that you're really having to take my word for what these lights are like on here. But the Trident does have LED lights all round as standard, and I have to say, looking at this with my actual naked eye, these lights are excellent. I've got it on dip at the moment, and I've got a long throw and a wide spread, and it's kind of daylight as well type of temperature, so the lights are absolutely brilliant on dip. Hopefully you can see some of that. I'm just going to come around here and turn on to full beam. There we go, there's full beam, and my goodness me, that makes a lot of difference. Now I've got a complete width of the road is lit up, and as far as the eye can see, yeah, lights on here, really very good. So hopefully you can see the TFT display. I've got it turned right down to just 2 bars of its brightness, because I just found it a little bit too bright, but it's very, very easy to turn down. It's one of the standard settings on the TFT, so that's no problem. And yeah, wow, what an amazing view forward. I'm hoping the GoPro can pick that up a little bit. They're some of the best lights I've used recently actually at night on the bike. The only downside, I guess, with the bike, no lit switchgear. Now of course the bike is built to a price, so no great surprise, not that many bikes have lit switchgear these days, but some Triumphs do. And in the case of this one, where it's got the 4 little, you know, not joystick, but the 4 buttons to control things on the TFT on the left handlebar, it would be handy if they were lit, because I struggled just now to find those so I could get to the display change. So that's the only thing. Putting the light up and down using that trigger finger for the full beam versus dip, no great problem. Just that issue, as I said before, about not being able to flash people, but other than that, yeah, lights on the Trident are great. No issue riding at night if you have to.
Okay, so what about some practical items then? What would the machine be like to actually live with in terms of things like pumping the tyres, etc.? There's a whole bunch of stuff that people often ask me about. Let's cover those off now. Okay, so as I mentioned it, how about pumping the tyres up then? Is that going to be the issue on the bike? Well, I'm glad to say it won't be, because Triumph have fitted the right angle valves on here, the valve stems, so it makes it really easy to actually get in there with your pump and all your tyre gauge to check them. It's the same on the front as well, of course. Of course, you've got the twin discs on here, but there you go, down the bottom there, hopefully you can see, we've got the right angle valve as well. So that's dead easy. Another thing that people sometimes inquire about is how do you go about checking the oil on the bike? Is it a sight glass or is it a dipstick? Well, on the Trident, it's a dipstick. Down here in the usual spot on Triumphs, right down the bottom here. It's quite tight. There you go, little dinky dipstick. Looks like it could possibly do with a drop of oil maybe, although the engine is cold, so maybe not. All right, next practical item, how about lubing the chain? Well, the bike, of course, doesn't come with a centre stand. It's got this whacking great Euro 5 friendly exhaust on the bottom. There's no chance you're going to have a centre stand on this bike. So if you want to lube the chain, which of course is on this side on this bike, then you're going to have to get it on some paddock stands or something similar so you can actually get in there and do it, or you're going to have to wheel it around your driveway and oil the chain in that way. They have put threads on the actually on the swing arm, so you can fit paddock stands on it. So not all bikes have that, so that's at least a good thing. They've thought about the maintenance of the chain at least. Next thing that often comes up is what is the horn light. Always difficult to show you when I'm just using a lapel mic like this, but let's turn the bike on. We'll give the horn a go, at least you get an idea of the tone of it. Here we go, stand by. Woo! Standard Triumph horn as far as I can tell. Very, very shrill, pretty loud here in the garage, but yeah, bog standard bike horn really. Another thing people often ask about is what's the seating position look like when you're actually sat on the bike. So although I've talked about the seating position when you're riding it and showed that in my first impressions review, what does it actually look like when I'm sat on it? Well, here we go, here's a little picture of me sat on the bike. You can see that my legs are, you know, relatively in a sporty position, but you are quite upright on the bike. So I'm 5'8" with a 32-inch leg to give you some sort of comparison. I find the bike very comfortable. Okay, next up on the practical items, what's actually under the seat? What's it like to get the seat off and what is under there? Let's have a look. So like so many bikes, there's a key that you stick into the side here, and off she pops. Let me bring you a little bit closer, show you what's under there. So here we go, that's where the battery is, and it's amazing that it's sort of canted backwards. Very clever how they've done that to save some space and maybe get the seat lower, I guess. And back here, there's a little tiny bit of space that you could possibly get half a round of sandwiches if you were not very hungry at all. So really, no storage room to speak of underneath here. Looks like you've got some fuses and things in here. What else is there to say? Looks like maybe a diagnostic port there. Or is it under there? Well, that's probably the ECU. I don't know. Anyway, I won't start unplugging stuff. But anyway, that's underneath the seat. Not a lot of room for storage, but it's easy enough to get the seat on and off. Actually, while we're on the subject of the seat, one thing I have noticed about the bike is the seat is covered in a very smooth sort of plasticky, well, not plastic, but, you know, vinyl type material. Don't know what it's called. I've not come across this on a motorbike seat before. And while it's all very well, it looks nice when it's new, I found that it's quite difficult to keep looking clean and tidy. So this bike got wet when I rode it in the wet, obviously, and I've cleaned the bike since. But there are some sort of marks on here that you can wipe off, and I'm sure if you used specialist cleaners, it would bring this up, but it risks maybe making it slippery. So although this looks quite nice, this matte finish on here, I'm not sure over time how good that's going to look, but we'll wait and see on that. Just a small thing I noticed. Talking about cleaning the bike, what is the thing like for keeping clean? Well, the first thing I would say is that it does throw an awful lot of mud over itself at the back. I took some pictures here of some of the dirt that threw up over the back. So this rear hugger thing that I don't much like the look of and seems to come in for quite a lot of criticism, doesn't seem to be actually that effective. But in terms of cleaning it, it's fairly straightforward. It didn't take me long to clean it, and it comes up absolutely fine afterwards. It's no harder or easier than any other bike in that respect. So usually in this section of my long-term reviews, I talk about the pillion provision on a bike. Well, we've talked a bit about that in my other videos on the bike. Go back and check those out. But just by way of summary, there's no grab handles on the back of the bike for a pillion. That might be an issue. And the foot pegs are pretty high as well. And the seat itself is pretty small. So I haven't tried a pillion on the back of it. I haven't got anybody who's brave enough to ride on the back of it with me. But yeah, so in terms of pillion provision, not great.
So how about going on a splendid motorcycle tour on the Trident through the beautiful English countryside, or indeed anywhere else for that matter? Well, of course you can tour on any motorcycle, so you can do it, but is it ideally suited? Well, this I think is where the Trident falls down a little bit, and then it's not great from a touring point of view. It's certainly comfortable enough. You can ride this bike all day long. The seating position is lovely and comfortable. The seat isn't that uncomfortable. I've got plenty of room on the bike. There's a medium-sized fellow. There's a lake there. I've never noticed that before. Splendid. But where it lets itself down is it's really got no luggage carrying capability to talk about. So in the accessory catalogue there is a tank bag, which is a rather large thing that sits on here, but you're not going to fit enough for a couple of weeks away in that. But there doesn't appear to be any accessory luggage rack or baggage or anything like that. And because of the way the back end of this is, you know, it's quite distinctive, the back end on this, short and stubby. There's not really anywhere to lash a bag much either. I mean, you could lash a bag on, I suppose, if you got creative. But you're not going to be taking a pillion and baggage away, that's for sure. So if you fancy going on tour on your motorcycle, then perhaps look elsewhere other than the Trident. That's probably the only area that it doesn't score well. Okay, time for my lugging about test. What's the bike like in terms of turning circle and ease of moving around to simulate what it's like moving on your driveway, garage or whatever? So let's just stick it in this standard parking spot. Find neutral. Finding neutral can be a bit tricky on the bike, actually, I've found, but anyway, there we go. Right, okay, so I'm in the middle of this parking spot. There's the bike. There's no grab handles as such, so you know, you've got nothing to hold on to except the seat, but that's no big deal. It is quite a light bike. It is quite low, so from that point of view, it's quite easy to move around. Let's put it on full lock and see which parking spot I get into. So out we come, and full lock now. Full lock, I have to say, isn't that great. In fact, there's quite a wide turning circle. Feels very light though. No problem at all actually lifting it up off the stand and moving it around. So that was from middle of that spot there. It's gone to the outside edge of there. So I've done this test on all sorts of bikes in this very car park, and that is quite a wide turning circle. No big deal. Nice and light and easy to move around. It's not going to be a problem moving it about on the driveway. Seems to carry its weight quite low. So no real issues, just a wideish turning circle. Okay, how about faster roads, dual carriageways, that sort of thing? Here I am on a dual carriageway doing a steady 70 miles an hour, and the bike feels like it's got plenty more to give. Just for reference, I'm doing 5,500 RPM at 70 on the bike in top gear. It feels composed. It doesn't feel like it's stretched in any way. It doesn't feel like you're revving the, you know, absolute tits off it or anything. It feels like it's got lots more to give. In terms of wind protection, it is of course a naked bike, so there isn't any. So all the wind blast is on my torso, but it's clean air. There's no turbulence there, so absolutely fine. So if your morning commute has some motorway or faster roads, you're not going to have any issues with the Triumph Trident. It's absolutely fine on these faster roads. Plenty of shove, nice and comfy, ride quality is good. You'll have no problems. Thumbs up for the Trident once again.
So at the start of the video, I said I'd give you my list of pros and cons of the bikes, not only the good things, but the bad things too. Let's get all negative and run through the things about the bike that I found that I didn't particularly like. So as usual, I've written down the list of negatives so that I wouldn't forget anything. So first up, and it's a very subjective point this, but the looks of the bike. There's something about the bike that doesn't quite work for me. When I first saw the pictures of the bike at the launch of this, I thought it looked really nice. And overall, there are aspects of the bike I do like. I quite like the tank. I quite like this plastic bit that's in here that does seem to split opinion. I also quite actually like the way the rear works, although it's not very practical. I think it looks quite good. But there's something wrong with the front of the bike as far as I'm concerned. It's just too kind of squat for me. As I say, it's a personal choice. You might love the looks of the bike, but I don't think it looks that great. That's just me. Okay, next up, and this is the only thing on the bike I think that lets it down from a quality point of view, and that is the brake pedal. I just think it looks a bit cheapo. It's sort of, I don't know, it's got sort of a pressed look about it. It just looks a bit cheapo to me. I mean, it's solid. I'm sure it's not cheapo. And compared to the rest of the foot peg setup here, I mean, these look great. But the actual brake pedal itself just looks a bit cheapo to me. I don't know what's going on there. Next up, runs out of puff quite quickly, I said here. Now, one of the things I do love about the bike is the fact that it's got bags of low down torque, so at real world speed, sort of 0 to 70 miles an hour, it picks up quickly. But after that, it soon runs out. It's just the way the torque curve has been engineered. There isn't a lot up top as far as this bike's concerned. It makes it great in town and stuff, but forget track days and stuff like that. Next up on my list here of negatives, and we've already talked about it, so I won't dwell on it, but it's just passengers aren't well catered for on this bike. And then last but not least, it's difficult to take any luggage on this bike. Again, very difficult to strap any luggage onto the back. There are no accessory baggage options as far as I can tell. There is a tank bag that you can get in the accessories catalogue, so that'll give you a little bit of storage. But basically, if you're going away with this bike, then you're going to want to be using a rucksack. All right, so let's end on a high then. Let's go through the positives that I've noticed on the bike. So the first thing on my list here of the positives is the weight of the bike. 189 kilograms wet, which I work out is about 179 kilograms dry. So a pretty light bike, which means it's great if you're a relatively small person and don't like shifting heavy bikes about. Then this is going to be easy. It also reflects in the handling, of which more later. But yeah, relatively light bike, which is always a good thing. Next up, sound I've noticed here. This engine, the triple on here, sounds absolutely sweet. That amazing triple induction noise that Triumphs are famous for. Maybe doesn't quite have the shrill howl that the upper echelons that my Triumph Street Triple has, but nonetheless, still a great sounding engine, so a lot of fun to be had from that. I love that. Next, TFT. Now, the TFT on here really is good for a Triumph one. I often complain about TFTs on Triumph motorcycles. In fact, so much so, I've made a video specifically just on this TFT, so go and check that out on the channel. Should be up already. If not, it'll be coming soon. But yeah, the TFT on here, really good. No complaints as far as the TFT is concerned. Next up, I've written here, grunt. 47 pounds-feet of torque on this. They've done clever things with the torque curve, which means that all the power is delivered nice and early on. So as you wind around between sort of 0 and 70 miles an hour, the thing absolutely flies. It doesn't feel that much different to my Street Triple, actually, which has got a lot more horsepower. So yeah, I love what they've done with the torque on this. Next up, handling. The bike handles absolutely beautifully, partly because of that lightweight, as I mentioned, but also the suspension setup with these shower forks seems absolutely beautiful. It's not adjustable, the suspension, but for me, a medium-sized fella, I'm 11 stone, 5'8", I find the handling is just brilliant on this bike. So no complaints there as far as the handling is concerned. Next on the list, and this is a big one, is the price. £7,195 one of these will cost you, which puts it slap bang pretty much in the middle of its competitors. So things like the MT-07 will cost you slightly less, I think. The Honda CB650R slightly more, but in terms of the facilities that this offers, the competitors can get nowhere near this. It's an excellent price for this bike. And last but not least on my list of positives, it's the what I've written here is the real world electronics on this bike. This has got all the electronics you need and no more besides. It's got ABS and traction control, which really you can never argue with. They're just great safety features to have. It's got that great TFT, it's got LED lights, and that's it. There's nothing else on there to distract you. Oh, it does have riding modes, of course, but again, they're only the ones you need, a road and a rain mode. All you need, there's nothing to distract from your riding pleasure. So those are the positives that I highlighted during my time with the bike. Okay, so there we have it. That's my in-depth review of the Triumph Trident 660. A lovely little bike, and my overwhelming memories of the bike will be how much pep this bike has got. It gets up and goes much quicker than I thought it would do. A beautiful machine. I love the TFT on it, and it is just a great value for money bike. When you compare it to some of its competitors, then I think it just offers so much for the money. For me personally, the looks don't quite do it, but that's kind of a subjective thing. Anyway, that's it for this time. I hope you enjoyed that. Do leave your comments below and let me know if you disagree with anything, or indeed agree with anything that I've said in this review. It'd be great to have you along for the next one. If you've not done so already, do hit the subscribe button below, and that way I can see you in the next video. I don't just do bike reviews here on the Missenden Flyer, but I do tips and trips about how to look after your motorcycle in the garage. I do trips and tours at home and abroad. I do the odd live stream, a monthly bike news, basically anything and everything to do with motorcycles. I'd try and cover it here on the Missenden Flyer. It would be great to have you along. All right, until next time, this has been the Missenden Flyer. Cheerio.